Good morning and welcome to week 3, Communications in Policing. What a difference a week makes. Last week I was sitting here, it was 21 degrees outside. Today it is a very brisk 55 degrees outside. Cows are fed, dogs still wandering around. You'll be able to hear them. What a week I had. I had Kairos this week. Kairos is a prison ministries where I had 42 participants, 42 inmates showed up. I had 35 other inmates who were servers and served food and helped with tables and helped with the event. And then I had 36 volunteers from local churches that came in, part of the Kairos ministries that came in, and they spent 4 days. I had 16-hour days plus my commute time uh, with this church ministry thing. Uh, at least two guys stated that they'd come to faith in the Lord. Uh, and then the rest dedicated themselves to discipleship and actually walking out their faith. It was pretty cool, pretty fun, pretty interesting, but it made for long days. So I didn't participate as much as I wanted to. Um, Hopefully, this week I will do a much better job. Guys, so for discussions, let me discuss discussions for a minute. Um, what I've noticed and what I've trended um, this past week in the discussions is that you guys are not addressing the initial question. Okay, so for example, this past week's discussion is why is discretion a necessary part of police officers' job? Have you observed police discretion? So these questions are two parts. The first part is information, and that information is supposed to be fact-based and research-based and written in APA format using in-text citations and providing a list of sources. Okay. The textbook tells you why discretion is necessary. I discussed the importance of discretion in last week's lecture. And then uh, there's other sources. There's a link inside the course module for internet web sources and other research sources to help you explain and to address and answer this question. So I expected to see um, an academic response on why discretion is necessary part of police officers' job. Okay. Then the second part is about you and your involvement and your opinion. And that is, have you observed police discretion in operations? Please share your experience. That does not require in-text citations. That does not require a list of sources because that's your opinion and that's your experience. But at the end of every discussion, I need to see a list of sources and I need to see a in-text citations and a list of sources at the end of your post. Okay, so this week's discussion is at night. You confront a suspicious man walking through elite neighborhood. You stop to question the man, but he refuses to identify himself. What are you going to do? Elaborate and justify your decisions. Ensure that you use proper court precedent and citations. You must submit your original post by Wednesday. You must respond by Friday. You must reply by Sunday. Okay, so this is going to have two parts. Well, it's two parts. Okay, what are you going to do when you are walking through an elite part of town and you see a man walking down the street in the middle of the night? Okay, how are you going to question him? What are you going to do? And what's your discretion? Are you going to ignore him? And then what is your precedent? What is your court decisions? And what academic theory or resource is going to base and is going to inform your discretion? If you remember last week, I said that discretion must be based on must be based on policy, and this policy includes court precedents, and this is also going to be dealing with communication. So how do you communicate all of this? I remember when I was a teenager, I was in the Law Enforcement Explorers, and I went to a national conference, and we did police training. I got to meet Ted Nugent there. It was really cool. A lot of famous law enforcement officers. Steven Seagal was there. Ted Nugent was there. There was some lineman for the Cleveland Browns was there. I don't remember his name, but I got to meet all of these guys. And in the process, one of the things that we did was we were trained in how to make responses. And one of the things that, my response was a domestic violence assault at this address in this apartment. So I respond code 3. And I go up to the door, I knock on the door, and I get shot. We used simulated ammunition and paintballs and rubber bullets, and they still hurt. Believe me when I tell you that rubber bullets and paintballs hurt when you're not wearing the proper equipment. So I got shot, and they just left me there. Okay, and it was hours. I was just sitting there, and then eventually some police officers show up, guns drawn, and looking for me. And they made the arrest. They arrested everybody. They got medical attention to me. I did not die. But what did I do wrong? Well, I failed to advise dispatch that I'd arrived on the scene. I failed to advise dispatch that I was entering the house, that I was knocking on the door, and nobody knew where. They know that they sent me to this address, but they didn't hear from me again. And it took them 2 hours to decide that they were going to go respond. So the lesson that I learned from that is that I will always and forever contact Central or dispatch and tell them where I'm going and what I'm doing. Even with my personal life, here in a little bit, I got to go into town to get some feed and stuff. And I'll let my wife know when I'm leaving. I'll let her know when I get there. I'll let her know when I'm on my way home. And, I do the same thing day in, at work. I'm at work now. I'm coming home now. So that somebody knows where I am or where I'm supposed to be at a specific time. Communication is extremely important. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is our quizzes. Let me get over to the grade book. Okay, so quiz 1. There's one person that did not complete quiz 1. So let's see here. Question analysis is coming up. Kind of slow. It's just not wanting to come up. There it is. All right, so average score was a 9.4 out of 10. 26 people completed. The average time spent on this quiz was 4 minutes, 42 seconds. Apparently, this quiz was way too easy for you guys, which isn't a bad thing. You should have all the correct answers for those that missed something. For somebody, you know, and because you're going to see these questions again on the midterm. So question 1, 88% of you got it right. Question 2, all of you got it right. Question 3, 80% of you got it right. Question 4, 96% of you got it right. Law enforcement, 100%. You know, you guys did a really good job on these questions. So let me scroll up here. It says question 7, and I know that these were, you didn't see them in the same order that I'm seeing them, but this question was principles and values that guide the performance of police department are known as policies, tasks, general orders, procedures, or all the above. 25 of you said policies. One of you said all the above. The correct answer was policies. Principles and values that guide performance and guide discretion are known as policies. And it is important that you know your policies. If you remember me stating, it is important that every discretion, every decision that you make as a police officer must be made in accordance with policy. Question 6 is, in 2007, females accounted for what percentage of sworn police officers? The correct answer was 12%. 2 of you said 6%. That's just a fact that was done and completed and found within your textbook. Question 1. As the U.S. population becomes more diverse, it is projected that the U.S. population will drop to what percentage of white compared to the 87% white that we had in 1950? The correct answer is 51%. So we are expecting that the majority white population will become a minority of the total population in the next few years. And the greatest number of those are going to be Hispanics, if you cared. In 1968, which city made history by assigning the first 2 female officers on patrol in a capacity equitable or equal to their male counterparts? And that correct answer was Indianapolis, Indiana. Now, so a few of you said New York, a few of you said California. But don't you find it interesting? The first police department in the United States was in 1835 in Boston. And it took 130 years to get females to be able to work patrol. All right, so that was our quiz review. Make sure that you're all ready to go, and we will press on from there. Let me come back over here and share my screen. so that we can talk about today's lecture in communications. We're going to share. I'm going to share the entire screen. Can I share a window? Share this window. And what it's going to do is share my PowerPoint. I'll put my PowerPoint in theater mode. I will take this and move it up here in the corner. Okay, so chapter 2, communications, the foundations of police operations. Everything that police officers do has to be done through communications because police officers are often alone. It is important that they communicate with dispatch what they're doing, how they're doing, and where they're going, and letting supervision know what they're doing. Okay, so effective communication can provide several positive outcomes, such as safety. It can be used to inform, to persuade, to diffuse, to guide, to motivate, to reassure, and to negotiate. Police officers will routinely communicate every facet of their jobs. Even, and this is even in corrections where I work. Like last night, I brought 130 inmates from the web center back to the main complex for the prison, and you're only allowed to send 25 at a time. So every time I sent 25 guys onto the walk, I'd say Chaplain Fisher to Westgate, sending a shot at 25 to building 1 and 2, sending a shot at 25 to building 3 and building 5. And, there were 3 shots that went to building 3 and 2 shots that went to building 5. There was 1 shot of 2 guys to building 2 and a shot of 16 that went to building 1. Our building 4 is closed at the moment. Every time you do something, this building is secure. This building is secure. There's no inmates here. I am starting patrol. I am pulling over this car. This is the license plate number. I'm at mile marker 125 of Interstate 30, outside of Little Rock. Where am I? What am I doing? This way we can make sure that people are informed and that you have backup coming if you need it. Effective communication can be a powerful public relations tool. Communications is important for community relations and community oriented policing. Okay, so the flow of communication can flow vertically downward from the chief to the officers. They can flow upward from the officers to the chief. They can flow horizontally among officers to officers, supervision and supervision, the wardens. And then you've got the grapevine and the rumor mill. We call it inmate.com at the Wallace unit. If I want to get information put out, I can send flyers. I can go to each dorm and each day room and tell the inmates what I want done. Or I can just tell a couple of inmates and let inmate.com take care of it. And we can do the same thing, through officer.com. I want everybody to know that this is what I'm doing and this is what's about to happen. It's called scuttlebutt. A lot of times scuttlebutt can hurt, but scuttlebutt can also be a useful tool to make sure that your rank and file get all the information that you need to be given. So the rapid evolution of technology, it has been enhanced to databases. We've got websites and social media. Back in the 30s and 40s, police officers, we had call boxes on every block, a phone that the police officer could go to and make a phone call and request backup. And then we went to CB radios, and then we went to two-way radios, and now we've got cell phones. This is my state. This is my state cell phone. And I can contact anybody I can contact the warden's office. I can contact the prison. I just finished making a phone call to the education department and to the supervisor's department. I've got text where the captains of every shift also have a phone where I can text information. And I can text and make communications with my volunteers and the people that work for me. We've got databases, we've got reports, all kinds of ways to be able to communicate what's going on. My boss, my supervisor, does not work at the Wallace unit. My supervisor works 3.5 hours away in Plainview, Texas. So I communicate with him through email, through text, through phone calls, and communication is important. I send him monthly activities reports. If there's something going on, I send those reports. I work at the Wallace unit, but I don't work for the warden. Okay. I am in charge of all faith-based initiative and rehabilitative programming that occurs on the Wallace unit. So I advise and I inform the warden of what I'm about to do and what I'm going to do, which requires good communications. So this weekend during the Kairos event, I wrote 5 IOCs, interoffice communications, that I'll submit to him tomorrow when I get to work. Speaking of my state phone, please hold. Chaplain Fisher, may I help you? Yes, Toby. Yeah, go to Nancy, get Crum, and he'll go with you. I know he's got. I don't know what time you planned on going up there, but he's got church services in Wing from noon to 1:30. Right, that'll work. That'll be perfect. No, you're a CVCA. When you get to well, you are now. By the time you get there, you just let Central know that you are going to 5 building, because James lives in 5 building as well. He lives in Paul Wing. I just don't remember the house. I think it's 49, but I don't know. Just because you go there every Sunday, everybody's used to you being there. So you just tell them that you're going to 5 building for a ministry visit, and then you're going to 3 building for your class, and then you're going to go get Crum, and that should be fine. If they have any questions, they can call me. And because they don't escort you when every other Monday when you go up there, do they? Do they just let you go? All right. All right. Well, you shouldn't have an issue, but if you do, just ask for somebody to escort you over there. And if they have any questions, have them call me, and I can call the warden's office and tell them that you're coming early and that you're going to be going over to 5 building first before your class to do some ministry work and to visit with James Northington. I'll let Miss Potter know, and then she'll let everybody else know. Okay. All right. That'll work. Talk to you later. Thank you, sir. Bye bye. All right. Sorry for that interruption. Um, Communication is extremely important. And it's important that that people know what you're doing and how they're going about doing things. Um, Challenges in communicating with an increasingly diverse public. One of the problems that we're finding is, language barriers. Okay. So I live in West Texas, and a lot of the people here only speak Spanish. Without having an understanding of Spanish, it makes it difficult. My son is deaf. He's profoundly deaf, uh, and the way that he talks is through sign. So it's important uh, that he, you know, communicates with law enforcement, that he is deaf, uh, so that they can find another way to communicate. Uh, and these become increasingly increasing problems, because when you know when a deaf person signs, and if he's excited, his signing is excited, and police officers will sometimes uh, get confused, and they won't know what's going on. So it these become increasingly difficult situations and problems. Some places the population only speaks Korean, or they only speak Chinese, or they only speak German. Down in Fredericksburg, there's a lot of people that only speak German. And if the police officers don't speak those languages, it becomes important that they be able to find an interpreter or a translator. Dealing with the mentally ill, the autistic. As police officers, we have to be social workers, in that we have to be able to communicate with everybody, and be able to remain calm while we're trying to inform or persuade or to convince or to do any of the forms of communications to ensure compliance. And the way that a police officer maintains his composure and maintains his professionalism will ensure that this encounter goes off well. Everybody understands. Hold on. Okay. Wait. Hold on. Wait. Just a minute. Um, because it is important that people understand. Because when people do not understand, they get confused. When they get confused, they get frustrated. When they get frustrated, that sometimes is confused for anger. And then situations escalate and there's a use of force. So officers must listen to the people that they're encountering, and make sure that they understand what's being conveyed or what's going on. A lot of information may seem irrelevant, but you need to listen empathetically. You need to make sure that you are hearing, not only hearing, but listening to and hearing what your client is saying. Okay. You need to have skillfully phrased questions. And again, active listening is important. If you have planned questioning, you can write down these questions. It's a field contact. If you're having a field contact with somebody, and I know right now with what's going on in Minneapolis, there's a lot of confusion and a lot of world going up. As a police officer, I challenge you to just go up and talk to people and do a field contact. I know when I teach this class face to face, I um, ask my students, and it's so much fun. I ask my students to go talk to, over a period of a week, And I didn't tell anybody that this was happening. Um, and I asked my students to go to all the professors, 2 professors a day, Monday through Friday, um, and ask 2 professors their name, identify themselves as, hi, I am student such and such and so and so. I am Dr. Fisher's student in his police systems and practices class. And I have been instructed to make field contacts with faculty this week. And I am instructed to ask these questions. Okay. Who are you? Where do you teach? Which building do you teach in? What's your subject matter? What's your PhD in? I will always get emails from professors asking me if I've asked them to do this. And I said, yes, I did. And then they go, well, why didn't you warn me, or why didn't you tell me? And I go, well, because police contacts are unannounced, and I'm trying to teach them how these events go. Actually, I think I'm going to ask you guys to do this. This is going to be your extra points assignment for this week. We need to give time for Dr. Wilson to inform everybody. But on Thursday, I need you to go make contact with 2 people, 2 professors or 2 staff members outside of the criminal justice department, and ask them, and tell them who you are, explain to them why you're talking to them, and then ask them their name, their rank, if they're a professor, assistant professor, associate professor, adjunct professor, if they have a PhD, what their degree is in, what do they teach, and where is their office on campus. So I'm going to send an email to Dr. Wilson to tell them what this assignment is, and let him decide whether or not he wants to inform all of the other faculty and staff at Fort Smith that this is going to occur on Thursday, to warn them or not. I don't like warning them, because then you get a real life experience on the pushback that you're going to get from people as a police officer. But do not do this until Thursday or Friday, so that I can send an email to Dr. Wilson, and Dr. Wilson can or cannot warn the faculty and staff at Fort Smith. If you are also you're an online student only and you're not at Fort Smith, go to 2 people that you meet at Walmart. Explain to them what's going on. Ask them their name. Ask them where they work. Ask them what they do for a living. Ask them if they have an education, and the same information. Guys, so you have authority to stop people. The Terry stop, Terry v. Ohio, and I had a big discussion over Terry stops in Terry v. Ohio this weekend. And you are required to have reasonable suspicion to stop somebody and to ask them this information. And you're going to get questioned. Well, what's your reasonable suspicion for asking me this information? And your reasonable articulable suspicion can be, I don't recognize you in this area. I frequent this area. I go to school here. I'm in this building a lot. I don't recall seeing you, and I am doing a security check. That is your articulable, reasonable suspicion to ask these professors who they are and what they're doing on campus. Okay, and this is something that we need to be doing more often as professors, as police officers. If we see somebody that's not normally recognized in the area, we need to stop them and ask them what they're doing here. And this helps prevent crime. It's part of community-oriented policing. It helps. I'm trying to keep the community safe. I don't remember seeing you here. You don't want to cop an attitude or but you say, I don't recall seeing you here. Again, I am one of Dr. Fisher's students in his police systems and practices class. This is an assignment that he has asked me to fulfill. I need to ask you these questions. If they push back, you need to make sure that you know Terry v. Ohio. You need to know that, well, I am allowed to, I have the authority to ask you these questions based on Terry v. Ohio, and that I have reasonable suspicion that you are out of place and that you don't belong here. I walk these halls every day and I don't recall seeing you. You look out of place. And this is what our discussion is about. Okay. You see somebody that you don't recognize in an elite neighborhood in the middle of the night. How do you approach them? And we'll go from there. So routine communications. It is important to establish rapport. It's important when you do an interview, it's important that you establish rapport. You establish this, you stage the setting. You want to record the interview. The types of questions that you want to have. Do you want to have open-ended questions, leading questions, or closed questions? Okay. You want to avoid leading questions because the lawyer is going to shoot them down. But they're allowed, and sometimes they're important. You always want to use open-ended questions. Okay, so what were you doing on February 1st at 6:15 p.m.? That's an open-ended question. Well, I was at home sleeping. Oh, well, okay. Yeah. On February 1st at 6:15 p.m., I was driving home. I just finished the Kairos. I got off work at 5:30, 5:45. I left the prison, got in my car, and I was driving home. I have an hour commute to get home from the prison to my house. So at 6:15, I was on the road. On my way home, I don't know exactly when, I stopped in Sweetwater at the Walmart to buy soda and ice cream. Okay. So what were you doing at this time? You can get those informations. Okay. You want to make sure that you phrase your questions properly and succinctly so that you get the answer that you're looking for. You don't want to avoid, you do not want to contaminate the interview. You want to interview witnesses and victims and suspects, and each of these interviews are held differently. They're at a different tone. Interviewing children is always difficult. You never want to interview a child without a parent or guardian there. If they're a victim, if they are a suspect, if they're a witness, you want to make sure that they have a parent or guardian there, or unless the parent or the victim is the suspect. I did child forensic interviews all the time without the parents there, but the parents knew that the interview was going on and the interview was recorded and it was being witnessed by somebody from the police department's office and somebody from Child Protective Services office. Okay, so interviewing children is difficult. You need to make sure that you're following the rules and that you're properly engaging. I am busy, dog. Go sit down. Okay, so the providers of information, you need to protect their identity. Okay, so you're going to inform me, and if you're in the discussion post, you're going to give me their name, their rank, their ranking, what their degree is in, what they teach, and where's their office. All of this is public information, and I could end up getting it on the internet website anyway. But I want you to go ask these questions. Law enforcement commonly categorizes informants. There's credible informants. There's corroboration informants. And the officers will know their informant's identity, but they don't share that information. Okay, so the Fourth Amendment provisions, Alabama v. White. Make sure that you go read. make sure that you go read Alabama v. White and you go read Florida v. LJ. Okay, these are your guidelines for your interviews. What you can ask, how you can ask, what you can search. We have the Fourth Amendment protection against illegal search and seizure. Okay, so when you're detaining somebody, you have to make sure that you have articulable suspicion to be able to keep them. Texas has an identity law. If a police officer asks you for your identification, you are required by law to release it. But go read Florida, this 2000 case, Florida versus JL. It's important. Obtaining facts. Okay, the Miranda decision. Miranda is only required if the individual is in custody and he is being accused of a crime. Okay, so you can ask questions and people can voluntarily perform and voluntarily disclose information without Miranda being given. I know there's a lot of people, and right now you hear it all the time. You can't ask me that because Miranda hasn't been issued. Ma'am, sir, you are not in custody. You have the right to refuse to answer any of these questions at any time. And you are free to leave at any time. Miranda is only required to be given if I plan on charging you. Well, Miranda is only required to be given when I am formally accusing you of a crime. When Miranda is not required is the totality of circumstances and the Bahiller admonition. And that was the admonition. You're free. You don't have to answer these questions. Okay. But in Texas, if you refuse to provide your ID, you can go to jail. And now I've got reasonable suspicion to arrest you and detain you. You want to obtain facts. You don't want opinions. You want facts. So consular rights and warnings to foreign nationals. You need ethical considerations and interrogations. The use of force or coercion during an interrogation. Okay, so I was questioned once about my involvement in a situation, and the police officer leaned on his gun he unsnapped it, unhooked it, and leaned on the handle of his firearm during the entire interaction, which I perceived as intimidating. Okay, if I don't give him the information that he wants and I don't tell him what he wants, he's going to shoot me. He's going to pull the gun out and he's going to shoot me. Truth detection and deception detection technology is legal, but it's not always excuse me, it's not always admissible in court. But you want to document confessions through video and through recordings, and you also want them to write any confession down on a piece of paper. Once they write it down, it is legally binding. Your field notes. When I'm working in corrections, when I was working in probation, I always took field notes of everything that I did. If I take count, I log the count, and I keep a little book, a little black and white journal, the little 3x5 journal, and I take notes of every interaction that I have, because you never know when you're going to be called upon to recall that information. Well, I didn't commit that crime at 1:45 a.m. because I was being questioned by Officer Fisher. Officer Fisher, do you remember interviewing or talking to this individual? No. When? Well, if it's written down, you can remember it. Successful communications. You have to have a clear policy on releasing information. You have to treat all reporters fairly. You need to make sure that you protect the privacy of your victims and your witnesses and even your suspects to a point. Okay, there is a law enforcement agency standard on informing the public, but that standard also governs the information that you have. So you want to make sure that you go read this chapters, and they give you all kinds of more information on this. There are the special problems in communicating include making sure that communications are secure, making sure that you protect the privacy of the people that you interview. The special populations that you're dealing with are going to pose challenging issues, like especially with communications and understanding. There's cultural differences that may change the way that you do things, or the way that you understand things. Okay, let me use a derogatory word in the United States. There's a derogatory word in the United States. That word is fag. And that derogatory term is directed towards homosexuals. But in England, the word fag actually means cigarette. I know my first time I was in London, I was smoking a cigarette. And this guy comes up to me and he says, "Hey, can I bum a fag?" And in the United States, that means something completely different than what he intended. Okay, what he intended was, "Can I have a cigarette? Can I mooch a cigarette off of you?" In the United States, bumming a fag means something completely different, and I'm not going to get into that. And if you turn around and you try to misquote me, or you try to mischaracterize what I'm saying, you're going to have to use the full context, because that was used as an example for a phrase that means something completely different in different countries and different customs. Okay, so you need to make sure that you write effective reports. You need to make sure that they're accurate, they're truthful, and they're succinct. They're grammatically correct. I wrote an MTR, and I had an MTR on a man that was abusing his wife, and I tried to get his probation revoked. And I had a comma splice, and because of the comma splice, the judge threw it out. That guy went home and murdered his wife. So I got somebody killed because of a comma. Okay, so it's important to make sure that your writing is grammatically correct. If your grammar is poor, like mine is, I recommend that you go purchase Grammarly Pro to make sure that you can ensure that your grammar is correct. It's $130 a year. I don't have those funds at the moment, so here we are. Departments must balance the right to know with the need to know information about cases. We don't comment on ongoing investigations is a common phrase. And you need to make sure that you understand that there's a difference in what the community needs to know and what they have the right to know. Okay, so that's the end of this week's PowerPoint. And we will proceed. I will see you guys in the forums. I've got another lecture for a class I'm teaching tomorrow in the prison, but I will get these papers graded and the discussions graded by tomorrow night, and then I will be in the discussion forums on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Not Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday night, and Sunday. A lot better than I was this week. So I'll see you in the forums, and have a great week and stay safe.